At my wedding, my rich wife's dad said, "He's not a real man, just a broke loser." My wife laughed. "He's lucky I even said yes." Guests clapped. Then my little brother stood up and said, "He wanted me to read this letter, if they ever disrespected him." The room fell silent. Chapter 1. The Perfect Illusion. The ballroom was dressed in elegance. Chandeliers glowing like starlight, crystal glasses lined on satin-draped tables, a string quartet playing soft classical music in the background. Everything was immaculate, just like her family liked it. My wife Claire stood radiant in her designer gown, the spitting image of high society grace. Her father, Arthur Caldwell, CEO of one of the largest finance firms in the state, had spared no expense. Of course, he made it clear at every opportunity that he was paying for everything. I stood quietly beside Claire, feeling like an outsider at my own wedding. It hadn't always been like this. When I first met Claire, we were just college kids sharing cheap coffee and big dreams. But as the years passed, I watched her become something else. Someone who laughed at poor people, scoffed at struggling artists, and looked at me with a smirk instead of pride. Still, I stayed. I told myself love would win. I was wrong. Then came the speeches. Arthur walked to the microphone with a proud, smug expression. He raised his glass and said, "To my daughter, marrying a man who, well, let's be honest, isn't exactly on our level. But hey, he's lucky she even said yes." There was nervous laughter. Claire didn't stop him. In fact, she added her own insult. "Well, Dad, maybe this wedding is the first time he's seen real class. Let's enjoy it while it lasts." This time, the laughter was louder. My stomach twisted. I looked at my little brother Jason, standing off to the side. He was only 20, still in college, but wise beyond his years. We'd talked before the wedding. I had a plan. A backup. Just in case things went exactly how they were going now. Jason met my eyes. I gave him the faintest nod. He stepped forward. "Excuse me," Jason said loudly, walking toward the mic. "I wasn't going to speak today, but my brother gave me a letter. He told me to read it only if they ever disrespected him." The laughter died. Chairs shifted. Claire's expression twitched. Arthur looked confused. Jason pulled a folded envelope from his jacket pocket. Let's see what he had to say. He opened the letter. The room fell into absolute silence. Chapter 2. The letter. Jason unfolded the letter slowly, deliberately, as if he knew every pair of eyes in that gilded ballroom was now locked onto him. The chandeliers still sparkled. The violin still hummed. But the energy had shifted. I watched Claire's smirk falter. Jason cleared his throat and began to read. "To my lovely bride, her esteemed father, and all the honored guests who just laughed at a man they never truly knew, you're right. I'm not from wealth. I don't come from a trust fund. I've worked for everything I have. Scrubbed toilets in college. Pulled double shifts while studying engineering. I built a small tech firm from a second-hand laptop. And a $300 loan from a friend. I've never cared much about status or image. What I did care about was love, and loyalty, and respect. So I stayed silent when Claire began talking down to me, when her father called me a project, when her friends called me her charity case. I thought it was temporary that they'd see who I was. I was wrong. Claire's face had drained of color. Arthur's hand twitched around his champagne glass. Jason kept reading. "But I'm not writing this to complain. I'm writing this to thank you. Thank you for the clarity. Because today, while you spent your money on this wedding, I spent my time finalizing a different arrangement. You see, 3 years ago I quietly bought a majority stake in Caldwell Holdings' largest tech vendor, an AI infrastructure company your firm relies on, a company you underestimated. And yesterday, I sold that stake to your biggest competitor. Arthur, by Monday morning, your firm's entire back end will go dark for 48 hours. Your investors will panic. Your clients will scream. And you'll realize the broke losers standing here just cost you $120 million in market trust." A gasp rippled through the room. Some guests turned toward Arthur. Claire's hands were shaking now. Jason continued. "As for Claire, our prenup, I didn't sign it. You tore it up during our engagement party for a laugh, remember? Because what could he possibly take from me? So I used your lawyers. Everything I built before this wedding is still mine. Everything acquired after, well, we'll let the courts decide. But you won't need to worry about that. Because this wedding, this marriage, it's over." Jason slowly folded the letter. Silence. Dead, unbearable silence. Then he spoke. I believe he ends it with, "Enjoy the cake." And just like that, he walked away from the mic. All eyes turned to me. I straightened my tie, looked Claire in the eye, and smiled. "Tell your father," I said calmly, "to check his email." Chapter 3. The Aftermath. The room erupted, not with laughter this time, but with chaos. Arthur Caldwell, the titan of finance and CEO of Caldwell Holdings, lunged for his phone, frantically typing in his passcode with trembling fingers. Claire, now ghost white, staggered back into her seat as whispers began sweeping through the crowd like wildfire. Is this real? Did he just say he sabotaged the entire company? Wait, didn't she laugh at him just now? Meanwhile, Jason didn't even look back. He gave me a nod, one of quiet respect, and walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind a trail of stunned silence, and one hell of a legend. I stood still as my so-called in-laws scrambled. My own soon-to-be ex-wife stared at me, lips parted, trying to form words that no longer mattered. Then the screaming started. What the hell is this? Arthur bellowed, waving his phone. It's a board alert. Our cloud services contract was revoked. The DevOps systems were sold to Rivet Core? That's classified information. His COO, seated just a few tables away, confirmed it in a shaky voice. Sir, it's true. We just got an emergency email. Our servers will be locked out for 48 hours. Shareholders already know. Guests began filing out, suddenly too embarrassed to stay at what was now the most humiliating social event of the year. Claire ran after me, heels clicking wildly across the ballroom floor. Wait. You knew? You planned this? I turned slowly. She grabbed my sleeve. Please, just tell me this isn't real. I looked down at her hand. Claire, do you remember what your father said when he first met me? She blinked. He said, you'd never amount to anything. I nodded. That day, I promised myself, quietly, that I'd wait. I wouldn't fight, wouldn't shout. I'd just show you who I really was, when it mattered most. And now? Now, I said gently. You've seen what real looks like. Then I walked away. Chapter 4. The Public Fallout. By Monday morning, Claire's father was trending on every financial news outlet in the country. Caldwell Holdings suffers major collapse after secret tech acquisition leak. Anonymous letter exposes internal corruption. Caldwell stocks plummet 68%. Was it revenge? Who was the author of the letter that brought down a dynasty? The wedding that was supposed to cement the Caldwell legacy had now become the very event that destroyed it. Reporters camped outside Arthur Caldwell's penthouse, hurling questions about insider trading, manipulation, and the abrupt termination of key corporate partnerships. Shareholders filed emergency motions. Lawsuits began flying in. The SEC launched an inquiry. And Claire? She was fired from her position at Caldwell's PR division within 24 hours. Turns out marrying, the broke loser, had exposed her to scrutiny she couldn't survive, especially when Jason's letter was verified and circulated through industry channels as a whistleblower document. Not only did it contain timestamps and records of Arthur's underhanded dealings, but it also included a voice memo. Claire herself mocking investors saying, they'll eat whatever garbage we package in a shiny presentation. That audio leaked. Within days, Claire became unemployable. The once cherished darling of elite circles now found herself blacklisted from every reputable PR firm. Her social media was flooded with angry comments, especially from former employees who'd been laid off during one of her father's cost-cutting phases. She tried calling me, texting me, but I was already gone. Because my letter hadn't just been revenge, it had been my resignation. From their world. From their disrespect. From the weight of pretending to be small. I had already packed my things and moved across the country. Jason met me at the airport. You really never planned to read the letter yourself? He asked, handing me a coffee. Nope. I smiled. That was your moment, little brother. You earned it. He laughed. What now? I looked out the terminal window. Now? I start my own firm. Quietly, and this time I won't be building it for someone else's empire. Chapter 5. The Rise of Something Better. 2 months later, I stood inside a modest office in a renovated brick building in Seattle's historic district. No golden plaques, no marble lobby, just clean wood floors, a handful of desks, and a whiteboard filled with scribbles and dreams. Welcome to Phoenix Systems, I told the 5 engineers standing before me. Men and women who, like me, had been discarded by the corporate world when they were no longer cost-effective. Jason was among them, my second in command. This time, I said, We build for us. Transparent, ethical, and future-proof. Phoenix Systems wasn't born to compete with giants. It was designed to disrupt them. We focused on ethical tech, open source development, and collaboration with nonprofits and universities. Within weeks, small companies and government-funded labs began knocking. They didn't want polished suits or nameplates. They wanted innovation and integrity. We gave them both. And the best part? Our first major investor was an unexpected one. An old friend from my early days at Caldwell. Someone who'd watched what happened at the wedding and said simply, "I believe in people who walk away with their head held high." Meanwhile, the Caldwell empire continued to implode. Arthur Caldwell was indicted. The board ousted him in disgrace. Claire filed for bankruptcy when her assets were frozen due to pending lawsuits. My parents, well, I hadn't heard from them. Not since the wedding. That silence was its own kind of closure. But I wasn't bitter. Because for the first time in years, I woke up excited. Not to prove myself, not to survive corporate politics, but simply to create, to mentor, to build something honest. And my daughter? She was thriving. We moved into a quiet neighborhood where she made new friends and no one whispered about her father being a loser. She called me her hero one night as I tucked her in. "Daddy," she whispered. "I'm glad we left that place. You're really strong." My throat tightened. "Thanks, sweetheart." We sat in the silence for a bit. Then she asked, "Will Mom ever say sorry?" I didn't lie. Maybe one day. But whether she does or not, it doesn't change who we are. Chapter 6. The letter that changed. Everything. Months had passed. Phoenix Systems was booming, quietly but powerfully. We had just secured a government contract for clean energy data modeling, something Caldwell Technologies had failed at for years. The poetic justice wasn't lost on me. But none of that prepared me for the moment my younger brother handed me the envelope again. The one from the wedding. The letter. I had almost forgotten about it. Almost. "Read it again," he said. "I don't think you ever really let them hear all of it." I unfolded the slightly crumpled sheet of paper. The ink faded just slightly from age and sweat. But the words, they still burned like wildfire. "To whom it may concern. If you are hearing this letter read aloud, then you've chosen to publicly humiliate me again. You called me a broke loser, a failure, an embarrassment. But here's what you don't know. While you mocked me for not having money, I built systems that supported hospitals during pandemics. While you laughed at my so-called failure, I helped a single mother engineer prosthetics for her son. While you chased yachts and headlines, I stayed up late tutoring neighborhood kids whose parents couldn't afford private school. I didn't build riches. I built people. I didn't chase glory. I chased impact. So if you're laughing at me right now, I forgive you. Because deep down, I know why you fear me. I represent the one thing you can't buy. A legacy. Signed, the broke brother who never needed your approval. The letter had stunned the wedding into silence. But now as I read it again in my own office, my staff behind me, my daughter playing nearby with a robotic kit we were designing for kids, it made me cry. Not because it hurt, but because it healed. That moment, this letter had started everything. The fall, the rebirth, the fire. Claire had tried to erase me. My family had laughed at me. My brother had mocked me. But none of them had built what I built. None of them had become the man I became. Epilogue. Years later, Phoenix Systems was valued at over $100 million. Claire applied for a job once. I didn't recognize her resume at first. It was generic, hollow. Like the person she'd become. I didn't reject her. I didn't reply at all. Some silences are the loudest responses of all. As for my daughter, she graduated with honors, full scholarship. On stage in front of thousands, she pointed to me and said, "That's my dad. The man who never let cruelty define him. The man who built his life again, and took me with him." And in that moment, I didn't just feel like a real man. I felt like the luckiest father on earth. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about this story in the comments below. Like the story, if you think this story is justified, share it with someone who needs this energy. And subscribe to Lauren's Story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay tuned.